Today I'm going to show you how to make this cute little bird out of some model magic. And we'll also need some tin foil, a little bit of wire. Some tools that we're going to be using are pliers, and if you have pliers that have little cutters in them, then you can use those, or you can use some wire cutters as well. And then we'll also be using a little bit of tape, and that's all that it takes to make your bird. Now if you want to have your bird stand on a nice little base like this, then you'll also need a block of wood. And then to finish off our birds, we're going to need some paint, some little black seed beads, and if you want to do some letters on them, then you'll need some Mod Podge and just some old magazines as well. So let's go ahead and get started. To make our bird, we need to make an armature first. So we're just going to use our tin foil, and we're going to crumple it into an orange slice shape. So, or like a smile. Now it doesn't have to be perfect, but once you have it, this will act as a support for your bird. Now, once you have your tin foil, you want to take your wire, be kind of careful because it can go kind of everywhere, and you want to take this wire and you're going to wrap it around so that, let's see if you can see this, so that the legs are sticking down. This will be the legs eventually. So you want it to wrap all the way around and then have two legs sticking down. And obviously these are really long, so we will eventually cut these, so don't worry about them being a little bit longer. That's okay. Just to secure those in place though, what we'll do is take a little bit of tape here and then just wrap that. And it doesn't have to look pretty, but it just has to kind of secure your tape in place, or your wire in place. Try to make sure those legs are coming out in generally the same area on both sides. There you go. So now, once we're done, we've got these two kind of long legs. You can straighten those out. And then we're going to clip off the ends, and we want these to be clipped roughly in the same spot. So the other thing that, before I even clip these, the other thing to keep in mind, let me do this down here so maybe you can see a little bit better. The other thing to keep in mind is that you want them to go a little bit longer than you would typically want the leg, because we're actually going to be making feet for this. So I'm going to go ahead and clip this just a little bit longer, kind of eyeball it here to clip the other one. And then I'm going to create a triangle on the ends of each of these feet. So I'm just going to do that by grabbing with my pliers and bending twice. And then once I have kind of this triangle going out, I'm going to just bend that end piece back in so that I just have a nice little piece of kind of wire there, or a little foot piece there. Yeah. Let's try that again. There we go. So same thing here. I'm going to, let's see, bend out again until I have that kind of come back around. Try to make it about the same size as you can, but it doesn't have to be exact. And there you go. You should have two little feet like that. Now what we're going to do is grab this triangle now, and we're going to, depending on the side we want the bird to be on. So if I want this to be the head, well, I guess the bird is the whole thing, but if I want the head to be there, I'm going to bend the feet towards the head. Okay, so I've got the feet bent towards the head. Now, you can kind of keep them here if you want to. You can kind of move them so that they're a little bit, so that you kind of have a little bit of a knee bend in there. So that maybe you have something like that, because, you know, the bird's legs kind of bend that other direction, so that kind of perches them there, and that can be kind of fun too. Okay, so once you have that done, it's time to pull out our model magic here. So open this up, and we're going to cover our entire bird with this model magic. So if you've never worked with model magic before, it's kind of got a almost like a marshmallow fluff kind of feel to it. It's not it's not kind of the traditional clay. If you've worked a lot with plasticine kinds of clays or even Play-Doh, it has a little bit more of a almost like an elasticy feel to it. So it's just a little different. So here we can start to see we're getting a little bit of a shape of a bird, but we want to start forming this just a little bit more. So I'm going to start trying not to expose the tin foil down there, but trying to kind of shape this out. And you can pinch some areas to kind of create these little beaks and heads, kind of head parts. You can kind of start to form the legs a little bit differently if you want to. I'm going to start kind of pressing this in to get a little bit more of a head shape. And kind of tap and smooth to get all these little parts filled out. If you want a little bit of a tail, you can kind of pinch these little areas out to create a tail. Just kind of be careful that you're not exposing that tin foil underneath, which can kind of start to peel up in some of these spots. And it really does not take much for you to start to see this little bird shape starting to happen. Now, when it comes to the wings, you can either kind of use the clay that you already have, or if you have some extra clay, you could roll out some flat clay and then attach it here. What you do want to do, though, is use some tools to kind of sculpt this, and I just kind of forgot to talk about those, but I have a little bit of a tool here, so I'll go in and kind of start to almost draw on these wings here, and maybe I'll just kind of press this part of the clay in so that that starts to kind of take that wing shape on in that area. There we go. Now if you start to see that you have some spots where it's a little lumpy, you can smooth that out. And this will actually stay fairly malleable for a while. So it's not like you have to work super fast, but then once you're done, it will set up usually in a couple hours. Might be a full day before you want to paint it though. So now one other thing, because we are in our finished piece here, because we are adding these little seed bead eyes, you need to create a space for those. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of look and let the bird that I'm creating kind of tell me where that eye should be, and then go ahead and make an indentation there to create an eye. Now you can also create some textures if you want with these different tools, so depending on the types of tools you use. And if you don't have any tools, you can always use a pencil or even kind of a little piece of wire or some paper clips to kind of press some different textures in there. So I can kind of create a little textural top to my bird. On these little tail areas, I could go in and just kind of tap out some textures along the back. And you're starting to see how you get that overall look of a bird. And really, this is about as simple as it gets. Once you're done with this, you're going to let it dry for 24 hours. Now, when you're ready to paint it, you can use any kind of acrylic paint. I just used a basic orange acrylic here. And then I actually just added a little bit of color, a little bit of detail in some of these areas with watercolor. So I just took a little bit of dry, not super wet watercolor, just kind of barely wet, and kind of let it fill in these little textural areas that I'd already created. When you are ready to put some beads in here, you can just get some little seed beads. Black works really well. You might try a different color if you want, like a dark brown or something like that would probably work really well too. And we just used a little bit of glue, kind of put a dollop of glue and then pressed the seed beads into place. And they stayed really well. When you're getting ready to glue this down to any base that you're using, you can use some hot glue, and if you notice, right in those areas, kind of hard to see, but right in those areas where our triangles are, we just filled up that whole space with hot glue, and it ends up making the feet kind of look like they're fully finished here. So you can kind of see those. They kind of look like they're full feet instead of these little triangles. So that's a good way to hold that to a base. You can paint right over the top of that hot glue, and then that just makes those legs look like they're kind of extended down to little bird feet. All right, well that is pretty much it. Very simple process. Let this dry. Go ahead and paint first, and then you're going to add a little bit of Mod Podge, or add a little bit of glue to hold that down. If you want to, you can Mod Podge over the base. That's just Elmer's glue mixed with a little bit of water, so equal parts Elmer's glue and water. And just brush a little bit of Elmer's glue on, lay down a letter, and then brush that over the top to secure the letter on. And then I went ahead and Mod Podge the entire base so that it's nice and shiny. If you wanted to, you could spray your bird with a little bit of a gloss, like a high gloss clear spray, a clear acrylic, or you could just Mod Podge over the top and get this kind of glossy look when you're done. So simple, really fun. This is a really easy project to do with kids. They really enjoy it, and it's not too expensive, so enjoy.